Okay, so let's get into it. Our mission for this deep dive is really custom tailored for you, the learner, who's looking for that shortcut to real English fluency.
Right. A fast, but also thorough way in.
Exactly. We're not looking at grammar rules today. We are diving deep into a stack of sources that all argue the same thing. Listening to real-life stories, how people actually talk, is probably the most effective way to close that gap.
That gap between, classroom English and how it works in the real world.
Yeah, and it's not just about listening comprehension, it's about how it makes your own writing sound more authentic, more natural.
And I think that's the big aha moment for you listening. This isn't about memorizing like 100 new words from a list. It's about absorbing context. Textbooks, they give you a great foundation, but they can't capture the subtle stuff.
Like what, specifically?
Well, the emotional tone, the conversational pacing, the exact moment a speaker, switches from being super formal to suddenly informal. When you listen to a real story, you get the whole package.
Right. You learn why someone chose a short, punchy phrase over a long, grammatically perfect sentence.
Exactly, and that helps you sound more natural. And it gives you this internal structure for writing things like emails or notes that actually flow.
You're internalizing the rhythm. That's a great way to put it, not just the words. So today we're on the hunt for those specific phrases, those scenarios, that let you apply this knowledge right away.
Yeah, to get past that slightly stiff, overly literal translation that can sometimes happen.
We want to inject that personality, that practicality into your communication from the get-go.
Let's do it.
All right. Section 1. Let's start right where it matters most. Practical language. The functional English you need to get things done.
To manage problems, solve things, execute tasks.
Right. And first up is navigating urgency, the classic 5-minute reply.
We've all been there.
Oh yeah, you're trapped. An urgent request hits your inbox or your Slack, and you have like 5 minutes before you have to be in a huge meeting.
You can't sit there and craft a perfect paragraph.
No way. You need speed, you need to sound professional, but you also need to buy yourself some time without sounding like you're blowing them off.
And the scenario in the sources is perfect for this. A colleague needs project input, like right now, and the speaker is already running late. The key was in the responses they used.
Okay, what were they?
The first one was simply, "I'll get back to you on that." And the second was, "Let me quickly check and get back to you."
I'll get back to you on that. It's so concise. But I have to ask, does it risk sounding too fast? A little dismissive?
That's a really good question. And I think that's where a learner might hesitate. The nuance is all in the context.
Okay.
If you sent that in a long, formal email after waiting a whole day, yeah, it might sound like you're just putting them off indefinitely.
Right, like I'll get to it when I get to it.
But in a fast-paced setting, like a text or a Slack message, it signals efficiency. It signals that you've seen it, you've prioritized it, and you're in control.
So how do you make sure that confident tone comes across?
The sources showed variations. You just add a time frame. That little addition transforms the whole thing from a vague promise to a concrete commitment.
Ah, so instead of just, I'll get back to you, you might say, I'll circle back on that by end of day. Or, let me fire off a quick reply in 30 minutes.
Exactly. That detail changes everything. You're using this functional language to gain control, not just to delay. And that teaches a really important cultural lesson, especially in business.
Which is?
Managing expectations is often more important than delivering the answer immediately. These phrases teach you how to set professional boundaries.
And the second one, let me quickly check and get back to you, adds another layer, doesn't it?
It does. It suggests the answer's close, that you're already taking action, but you just need that one moment to verify. It's active.
And this is where it gets really interesting for writing, because if you've been listening to people say this, you start using it yourself. It just flows into your professional emails.
Right. You're not searching your brain for some complex synonym. You're just using the actual language of modern professional urgency. It's authentic.
Think about the alternative. A learner relying on formal textbook English might write something like,
I am currently preoccupied with another task, but I will endeavor to provide the requested information at a later time.
Right. It takes forever to write, and it sounds so stilted.
So stilted.
Yeah.
Whereas the fluent speaker just types, I'll circle back in an hour. Efficiency is fluency.
Okay, so let's dial down the stress level a bit. We're moving from a high-stakes work crisis to a grocery store.
A very common low-stakes irritation. You notice a mistake on your receipt. The price is too high for an item.
It's less stressful, but you still need to be clear, effective, and polite.
Yeah, and the challenge for a learner here is how to point out the problem without sounding, aggressive or accusatory. The sources show how fluent speakers use framing to do this.
So what's the key phrase?
The opener is, excuse me, I think there's been a mistake with this item.
I think there's been a mistake. Why does that work so well? Why not just say, you charged me too much?
Because that framing is all psychological. When you say, I think there's a mistake, you're inviting the employee to solve an impersonal error with you.
So it's not you made a mistake, it's a mistake was made.
Exactly. You're not accusing them of a personal failure. You're pointing to a potential system glitch, which it lowers the tension immediately.
That opening really does set the stage. And then comes the actual request.
Which is, can you double check the price for me? It's the perfect, non-demanding way to ask for that verification.
It's so functional. You hear phrases like that all the time.
Everywhere. Retail, calling your doctor's office, dealing with any kind of bureaucracy. Now think about this. What if the mistake wasn't at the grocery store? What if it was a financial error on a huge company report?
The same basic structure would apply, you'd dress it up in more formal language.
Precisely. You replicate the exact same pattern. Polite introduction, clear statement of a potential problem, and a non-demanding request for verification.
Give me an example.
Okay, so you're drafting an email to your manager about a sensitive budget error. You start, "Hi manager, I was reviewing the Q3 report and I noted a potential discrepancy in the ledger for Project X."
Okay, so you've given context and you've framed it neutrally with potential discrepancy.
Yep. Then comes a request. "Could you kindly verify the figures for this specific line item to ensure accuracy?" The structure is identical to the grocery store.
That's amazing. That's the seamless flow we were talking about. You don't need to learn two completely separate sets of rules for speaking and writing.
Not at all. You absorb the rhythm of polite, clear, direct conversation, and your writing immediately sounds less stiff, more thoughtful.
It's all about clear communication, but delivered with tact. Before we move on, there was another quick example in the sources, asking for directions. Someone was lost and said, "Excuse me, could you help me find my way to the station?"
Simple, polite, effective.
Yeah, and that politeness is like the lubricant for the conversation. If you just walked up and said, "Where is the station?" It's grammatically fine, but
It's too blunt. It lacks that opening bit of kindness that, "Excuse me, could you help me?" provides. In many cultures, interrupting someone requires that little acknowledgement of their time.
And that's something you only really get from listening to real life.
Exactly.
Okay, let's shift gears. Now we're getting into the really subtle stuff that separates a competent speaker from a truly fluent one. We're talking about managing emotion and mastering the register switch.
Yeah, moving beyond just what you say to how you say it, how you adjust your delivery for your internal state and your external environment.
Let's start with expressing emotion in a controlled way. The scenario was the missing presentation.
Yes. And dealing with stress in a second language is a huge vulnerability point. When that panic hits, your brain just defaults to its simplest mode.
Right, and you can end up just stammering or losing clarity, which only makes it worse.
So this scenario, finding your presentation is gone minutes before a big meeting, is pure adrenaline.
And the speaker in the source, they used a couple of key phrases. They said, "I'm in a bit of a panic right now. I can't find the presentation. Can you help me figure this out quickly?" That first part, "I'm in a bit of a panic," it's so common, but how does that maintain control? What if you're genuinely, freaking out?
And that is the absolute core difference between just expressing emotion and fluently managing emotion.
Okay.
The phrase, "I'm in a bit of a panic," is a controlled admission. You're communicating your high emotional state without actually transferring the chaos to the other person.
The in a bit of a panic part softens it.
It softens it and mitigates the impacts. If you were truly freaking out, you might just yell, "The presentation is gone."
Yeah.
That's raw emotion. The fluent speaker is using language as a tool to pivot back toward a solution.
And the second part of the phrase is the key to that pivot.
Yes. Can you help me figure this out quickly? That's the anchor. It shows that despite the internal stress, your focus is on a solution, not just on venting.
I've heard similar phrases like, "I'm a little stressed out about this deadline," or "I'm feeling overwhelmed with the volume of work."
They all follow that same pattern. You admit the difficulty, but then you immediately redirect the focus toward action or assistance.
So you're actually learning a life skill. You're expressing vulnerability, but you're anchoring it with a clear, calm request for a way forward. That's so productive.
And it signals resilience to your colleagues.
All right, now for what I think is one of the hardest skills, register switching.
Oh, this is where fluency really, really shines. The ability to switch registers instantly. You talk to your best friend differently than you talk to your boss, even if you're saying the exact same thing.
And that adaptability it's just non-negotiable for success.
For sure.
So let's use that restaurant example from the sources. The basic message is the same. This new place is really good, but the language is completely different depending on who you're talking to.
Okay, so with a friend, the register is totally informal. Lots of enthusiastic language. You say, you've got to check this place out.
And the food is amazing.
The food is amazing. The atmosphere is so relaxed. It's immediate. It's personal.
Now let's contrast that. You're describing the same place, but to a potential business partner. Everything shifts.
Everything. The encouragement, you've got to check it out, becomes a formal recommendation. I'd highly recommend this restaurant.
Amazing food becomes exceptional.
Exceptional. And so relaxed becomes the ambiance creates a very inviting atmosphere for customers.
You can hear the difference in the purpose. With the friend, you're sharing enthusiasm. With the business partner, you're establishing credibility.
Precisely. That formal register, using words like highly recommend and exceptional, it shows polish. It shows discernment.
Okay, but here's the challenge. What if the context is murky? Like you're texting a new coworker after hours. You don't know them well enough to be super casual, but a formal text feels weird.
That is a fantastic question. And the rule of thumb is this. When in doubt, default to slightly more formal than you think you need to be.
Why is that?
Because it's always easier to slide down into informality than it is to recover from being overly casual right at the start.
Got it. So in that texting scenario, you might start with, "Hi, name, hope you had a good day," before you ask your question.
Exactly. You're maintaining that professional flexibility. Listening to these real interactions just teaches you how to read the room or read the relationship and adapt your language on the fly.
Okay, last one for this section. Expressing opinions, especially when you disagree. This is a big one.
A very subtle but essential skill. Just translating "I disagree with you" can sound way too blunt in English.
So fluent speakers use a kind of three-part structure to do it gracefully.
It's an invaluable template. We saw it in the sources example about two people discussing a movie. Part 1, acknowledge the other side. Part 2, introduce your own perspective. Part 3, support your opinion.
And I think that first part is the most powerful. The phrase was, "I totally get why you feel that way."
It's a verbal olive branch.
Yeah, it shows you're actually listening and you respect their position, even if you're about to counter it.
That acknowledgement does all the heavy lifting. It lowers their defenses. If you skip that step, they immediately feel attacked.
And then after you've done that, you signal your own view with the phrase, "But personally, I think."
And that little word, personally, is key. It frames what you're about to say as your subjective thought, not as a universal fact that negates their experience.
So where do learners usually trip up with this structure?
Often, it's the transition. They might say the acknowledgement part, but then their tone for the "but" is too harsh, too forceful. The rhythm is so important.
You need a little pause.
A little pause, a breath. You deliver the "I get it" part genuinely, and then you pivot to your evidence. The movie's pacing was a bit slow in the middle. You ground your opinion in a specific detail.
This pattern is it's so useful. It makes your arguments in a debate or even in an essay sound so much more polished and respectful.
It transforms a potential fight into a productive dialogue. And that is using language as a tool for navigation.
All right, so let's move from managing friction to actively creating connection. We're getting into more advanced social skills now, like storytelling.
And just navigating social events in general.
Yeah, first up, small talk. Specifically, networking events where you walk in and know absolutely no one. That's a high-stress situation for your language skills.
It really is. You need a structure to introduce yourself, but more importantly, you need to quickly shift the focus to the other person to get a real conversation going.
The sources gave us a great, simple structure for this. Personal context plus an open-ended question.
Right. The model was, "Hi, I'm Name. I just moved here and thought this event would be a great way to meet new people. How about you? What brings you here tonight?"
That "I just moved here" part is brilliant. It's interesting, and it immediately gives the other person something to ask you about.
It's a perfect conversational hook. They know why you're there. They can ask about where you moved from, your job, the city. It gives them an easy path forward.
And then that immediate pivot. What brings you here tonight? That's so important. It's not a yes or no question.
No, it requires them to share their own story. It makes the exchange feel balanced right away, not like an interview.
And this is where that register switching we talked about comes in again, isn't it?
Instantly. If the person replies, I'm a VP of operations for a major international logistics firm, you have to adapt immediately.
Right. So instead of saying, wow, cool, what does your company do? You might need to shift to a more professional register.
Exactly. You might say something like, that sounds fascinating. Could you offer a high-level overview of the logistical challenges in the market right now?
You're showing you can operate in their world.
Yeah, you're signaling that you understand their professional framework, which builds your credibility, even in just a few seconds of small talk.
Okay, let's talk about storytelling, because stories are really the ultimate form of social currency, right? We connect through anecdotes.
We do. And sharing a personal story, especially one that's a little bit embarrassing or surprising, it's how humans build rapport. For you as a learner, these stories are gold mines of common, expressive phrases.
Honestly, trying to tell a joke or a funny story in a second language is one of the hardest things to do. It's so easy to mess up the pacing.
It's all about timing and using those specific little expressions that add color and life to the story. Let's look at that coffee shop embarrassment story from the material.
Okay.
Think about the phrases that make it work. It starts with setting the scene. I decided to treat myself to a fancy coffee.
Right, treat myself. That already puts you in a certain mindset.
Then the conflict, which is signaled by that classic phrase of realization. I took a big sip, only to realize.
It was the wrong drink. And then the resolution is that self-deprecating humor.
Yes. Embarrassed, I laughed and said, well, I guess I'm trying something new today.
Treat myself, only to realize, these are not textbook phrases. They're the real building blocks of a relatable story. If the person had just said, I bought coffee, I drank it, it was wrong, it's completely flat.
Totally flat. These little phrases let you convey a whole sequence of emotions. Intention, surprise, embarrassment, recovery, so efficiently. Listening to stories teaches you how to build your own stories that are actually engaging.
Let's pivot back to friction for a moment. Specifically, how to handle misunderstandings.
And how to give feedback, both of which require a high level of linguistic diplomacy.
Misunderstandings are they're going to happen. The key is how you fix it. The example was in a meeting, someone was asked, what's your take on the current strategy?
And they misinterpreted it. They thought it was a request for a detailed step-by-step plan, not just an opinion.
And the way they corrected it was a masterclass in composure. Instead of apologizing over and over, they just paused.
And they used that crucial phrase, oh, I see what you mean now. You're asking for my opinion on it.
That little phrase, oh, I see what you mean now, it's like a reset button. It just erases the awkwardness and gets the conversation back on track.
It's a tool for professional composure. You recover from the mistake without losing your confidence.
Okay, what about giving constructive feedback? The source used the example of a professor giving notes on an essay.
And that balanced approach is absolutely key for feedback to be effective. You have to start positive.
Why?
Because it puts the listener in a receptive state of mind. They feel seen and validated before you get to the critical point.
So the phrase was structured carefully. Your argument is strong, but the organization of your essay needs improvement. They lead with strong.
Yes. And then, crucially, they offer actionable advice. It's not enough just to say it needs improvement.
You have to give them the next step.
You have to.
Yeah.
Try to structure your points more clearly so that your ideas flow better. Listening to these exchanges teaches you how to be critical and supportive at the same time.
All right, let's move into our thematic deep dive. This is where the power of listening to a really wide range of stories comes in, because you start soaking up all the specific, common expressions from different areas of life.
Yeah, we're moving beyond general politeness and into specialized conversational zones.
Right.
High utility phrases you need for any conversation.
First up, career, business, and goal setting. Conversations about changing careers are so common, and they're full of emotion.
They are. The dissatisfaction, the risk, the hope. You need language for that whole journey. So you'll hear people express that initial feeling of being stuck with phrases like, I just couldn't see myself doing it forever.
Or I feel like I had hit a ceiling.
And that feeling leads to the big decision, which is often described with this great visual phrase, I took the leap and started looking into graphic design.
Taking the leap. It's such a perfect expression. It captures the fear and the excitement of jumping into something new.
But then comes the adjustment period. So you'll hear phrases about the struggle like, I'm still adjusting to the different work culture.
Right. And for entrepreneurs, the language is all about resilience. The sources were full of stories of struggle.
Things like, It wasn't easy at first. I had to learn everything on my own, and then the language of bouncing back. I've had to deal with a lot of rejection, but I'm still going strong.
It shows the reality of it, not just the polished success story.
Mm-hmm. And let's talk about goal setting. The language you use signals your level of commitment.
So for a softer goal, you might hear,
Expressions of intention. I really want to focus on X this year, or I've decided to learn a new language. It's a little tentative.
but when the commitment is real, the language gets stronger.
It shifts to ownership. I'm committed to it.
Mhm.
Or it gets very specific. I'm aiming to run a 5K this summer. These little variations tell you everything about their level of ambition.
Next up, navigating change and cultural adaptation. Moving to a new country, for example. Those stories are always full of culture shock.
Oh yeah, and the language often revolves around feeling overwhelmed. A really common reflection is, I was overwhelmed. I had to learn everything from scratch.
But the more advanced communication shows that emotional balance, right?
Exactly. You acknowledge the hard part. There were times when I felt really homesick, and then you immediately show the positive adaptation. But I've started to build a new support system here. You balance the negative and the positive.
And what about those funny cultural mix-ups?
Those often start with the classic phrase, I learned that the hard way when I missed a meeting. It's this great verbal cue that you're about to tell a funny or embarrassing story, maybe about misunderstanding punctuality or something.
It's a device that invites shared laughter. Let's look at the U.S. education system example from the sources.
Right, so a student might express their surprise by using contrast. At first, I was shocked by how much freedom students have here, unlike in my home country.
And when they talk about the workload, the phrases are all about managing it.
It's not just, I'm busy, it's about strategy. The workload is intense, but I've learned how to balance studying with social activities.
And then that amazing high-utility summary phrase.
You just have to stay on top of things.
Stay on top of things. That's pure functional English for managing a complex schedule. You would never find that in a grammar book, but you need it to sound competent.
Absolutely.
All right, let's talk about mental wellness and adversity. This is a huge topic in modern conversations, and you need the right vocabulary to discuss it with nuance.
For sure. For stress, the language is direct, but often qualified. I've been feeling really overwhelmed at work lately.
And then when you talk about coping, the phrases show a change in routine. I've started meditating, and it really helps me clear my mind.
And that phrase, take a step back, is so common. We saw it in the burnout reflection. I felt like I was burning out, and I realized I needed to take a step back. It signals this necessary self-awareness.
And this connects directly to the language of failure and growth. The way we frame failure is so important culturally.
It is. So instead of it being about defeat, it's framed as an opportunity. You hear these growth mindset phrases all the time now. That failure taught me valuable lessons.
Or, I see failure as an opportunity to grow.
But it's not enough just to say that. You have to be able to describe the process. So you articulate perseverance. It wasn't easy, but I didn't give up.
And finally, for this section, coping with major life events. The language here can be really powerful.
Yeah, you hear these big metaphors to describe the crisis. I felt completely lost, or my world was falling apart.
But then comes that positive turn in the narrative.
Right. This gave me the push I needed to follow my passion. These expressions let you use the full spectrum of emotional language, from despair all the way to renewed purpose.
Okay, let's wrap up our thematic dive with the digital and financial world. Two topics that are everywhere today. When people talk about social media, the critiques are often about mindfulness.
In comparison, so you hear these phrases of self-correction like, I'm trying to be more mindful of how much time I spend on social media.
And critiques of the content itself. It feels like it's all about selling something rather than sharing real content.
And then there's the emotional pressure it creates. It seems like everyone's life is perfect, and I start comparing myself to them. You need these phrases to have a real nuanced conversation about digital life.
Okay, now for finance. Cryptocurrency. It's a huge topic, full of jargon and excitement and risk.
And the language people use perfectly captures that tension. You hear the excitement mixed with caution. It's exciting, but also a bit scary because the value can go up and down so quickly.
And to show you understand the tech, you have to use some of the jargon. The sources mentioned decentralized. How do you use a word like that without just sounding like you're reciting a definition?
Use it naturally as part of your opinion, just like in the source. What I find interesting is how decentralized cryptocurrency is. You're not defining it, you're applying it to explain why it's interesting to you.
And you also use the language of risk.
Yes. I've heard about people losing their investments. So I only invest what I can afford to lose.
That last part is crucial. I only invest what I can afford to lose. It shows a sophisticated understanding of the risk. Listening to these conversations it equips you with the real vocabulary you need for these complex, modern topics.
Exactly.
Wow, so we have covered so much ground in this deep dive, from a panic attack over a lost file to giving feedback all the way to decentralized finance. But the core takeaway, I think, is still that central idea, the incredible power of real-life stories. The goal is to absorb the natural rhythm and flow of English.
Right. To move past just memorizing rules and start developing an intuitive sense for how the language actually works.
And that intuition, that's the transformation, isn't it?
That's everything. By listening to all these diverse situations, you're not just learning words, you're learning cultural context, you're learning emotional pacing, you're learning how to switch register instinctively.
It turns language learning from this, academic chore into a practical, real-world skill.
And it makes storytelling the ultimate tool for getting to true fluency.
Absolutely. And as we close out, I want to leave you, the listener, with one final provocative thought to think about. We've explored how people use language, polite phrases, ways of disagreeing, humor to navigate all these complex situations. If language is so deeply shaped by culture and experience, think about all the subtle, nonverbal things you might be absorbing too.
Things that aren't even said.
Exactly. What social protocols are you picking up just by listening to a story about a family dinner in another country or a stressful day at a foreign university? What are the silent cultural norms you're learning without even realizing it, just from the pauses, the context, and the tone of the story?
That's a great question.
Keep listening, keep thinking, and keep discovering.